Hello and welcome to the 2020 Leadership Lock-In presented by the Best Truman chapter of NRHH. My name is Brandon Ingley, the Vice President of Administration, and we're glad you could join us for an amazing evening of leadership development. Now, as you may notice, all of tonight's activities have been pre-recorded in an effort to maintain social distancing and bring you the best night of leadership we possibly can. As the saying goes, the show must go on.
Before we begin tonight, we'd like to take a moment to tell you a little about our organization. The National Residence Hall Honorary, or NRHH, is the only nationwide and international organization that exclusively recognizes leaders in university residence halls who have committed themselves to the values of recognition and service. With chapter membership consisting of the top 1% of campus leaders, NRHH promotes excellence within the residence halls. The honorary is symbolized by the colors of blue and white. Blue signifies loyalty to self, purpose, and ideals. White signifies a blank page, a page on which a student writes the successes and experiences that fill their days, especially those that take place on campus.
The honorary is also symbolized by a diamond, the world's most precious gem. The gem signifies the value and beauty one finds in their college experience. The diamond surrounds the letters of the organization, which are encased in a trapezoid, as well as the three interconnected links, which makes up the chain of leadership. The first chain of the link represents caring. Leaders are people who care. They are concerned about themselves and others and are committed to making things better. The second link signifies dedication. Part of the leader's commitment is the dedication to ideals and causes which they display to others. Dedication is an important part of the involvement required to be a truly effective leader. The third and final link represents participation. True leaders participate fully in their academic pursuits, friendships, activities, and lives. Leaders do not sit on the sidelines, but are complete team members. Together, the unbroken chain symbolizes the never-ending leadership found in members within NRHH.
This year's theme is leading from a distance. Especially during these challenging times, leaders are needing to adapt to a new normal. While we may not be physically present, that doesn't mean we cannot be effective leaders. Our goal during this year's event is to help equip you with not only leadership skills in general, but more specifically how you can adapt those skills to meet the needs of organizations meeting in hybrid and online formats, perhaps for the first time ever. Tonight, you'll hear from several keynote speakers from around campus, sharing their insights of leadership in this new era. Participate in a self-reflective activity, and hear from a panel of student leaders across campus sharing how their leadership skills have adapted to meet the current situation. Without further ado, let's send it over to Jack to introduce our first speaker of the evening.
Our first speaker of the night is Dr. Janet Gooch. Janet L. Gooch, PhD, CCC SLP, is Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost and full Professor of Communication Disorders at Truman State University. In addition, she is a certified and Missouri licensed speech-language pathologist with successful clinical, teaching, and administrative experience. Dr. Gooch has over 15 years of progressively responsible, formal administrative experience in higher education. She served 7 years as Department Chair of Communication Disorders at Truman, one of those years simultaneously serving as Interim Director of the Ronald E. McNair Program. She served as Dean of the School of Health Sciences and Education from 2011 to 2017, and Interim Dean of the School of Science and Mathematics from 2016 through 2017, before being appointed Provost in July of 2017. Dr. Gooch has received multiple professional, teaching, and advising awards. In 2012, she received honors of the Association for the Missouri Speech Language Hearing Association, the highest honor that the association gives. In 2011, Dr. Gooch received the Omicron Delta Kappa Award in recognition of her commitment to continuous improvement and significant impact on the university through outstanding dedication, competence, conscientious performance, and ingenuity. In 2008, Dr. Gooch received the Walker Allen Fellowship for Excellence in Teaching and Service, as well as the Outstanding Undergraduate Resource Mentor Award. In 2003, Dr. Gooch received the William O'Donnell Lee Advising Award. Dr. Gooch received her BA in Speech-Language Pathology from the University of Kansas. her MA in Speech Language Pathology from Kent State University, and her PhD in Speech Language Pathology from Case Western Reserve University. She has participated in a number of formal administrative leadership institutes and academies, including the Higher Education Resource Services Summer Institute for Women in Higher Education Administration in 2011, and the American Association of State Colleges and Universities sponsored Becoming a Provost Academy in 2014 through 2015. Please welcome Dr. Janet Gooch.
Hi, my name is Janet Gooch, and I'm the Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost at Truman State University. And I'm glad to participate in the Leadership Lock-In. So thank you very much for asking me to prepare some words. And I also wanted to comment on the theme for this year's Leadership Lock-In, Leading from a Distance. I think that is a very timely and excellent theme. I think that we're all in some very unprecedented times, and as leaders and followers, no one really knows how this goes, since these really are unique times. To speak to that theme, I think when we are leading from a distance, when we're not as near to employees, to people we work with, to friends, colleagues, when we do lead, we really need to be a lot more intentional about what we do. And we have to be really purpose-driven. And that's what I want to focus my remarks on today, that idea of being purpose-driven. I think it's very important as a leader to be you and to stay true to you. And that is what I'm going to talk about today. So in that light, a little bit about purpose. What does that mean when we think about being purpose-driven and we talk about having purpose? Think about what that means to you. Having a purpose is something a lot bigger, a lot deeper than just having goals. A lot of us have goals in our leadership. A lot of us have goals in our academics, our lives. But a purpose is something more than that. People with purpose, they seem to be happier, be more focused. It's been experimentally proven that their lives are less prone to disease, that they're happier, that they can navigate complex, volatile, ever-changing predicaments that they find themselves in. Purpose drives exceptional performance and really provides us with a greater sense of well-being. To me, purpose is your natural flow of your gifts. So when you think about why you're here, why you're doing something, you can really maximize your gifts to get that done. I also want to point out that there's a difference between purpose and obsession. Your purpose opens up possibilities for you, but obsessions, they drain all of your energy. So you want to think about that too when you're leading. Am I doing this for a purpose, or am I doing this obsessively? So for example, as you think about what you're going to get out of your leadership roles or out of your academic life, your academic career, you may be one of those people who only does those things that really motivate you. You join clubs that you really can get behind, you can speak to the purpose, you give 100%. And then we all have seen students who do things just for the sake of doing them, to be able to put them onto a resume, to be able to talk about their experiences in those groups without really embracing the purpose of the group. So think about where you are on that continuum and work towards really fulfilling your purpose when you get involved with things. Your purpose should bring you joy, fulfillment, and energy. And I always like to ask myself, is this bringing me a life force? Is this helping me? Is this an energy addition, or is it an energy subtraction? Because even hard work, even making difficult decisions, being a leader, it's hard. But if it brings you energy and it motivates you, then it doesn't necessarily have to be hard. One of the most important developmental tasks that you can undertake as a leader is understanding and articulating your purpose, and then finding the courage to live it. Develop your purpose statement and live it out. So, as I said when I started this conversation, I'm the Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs, but that was never my purpose. It's not my purpose still. I never went into leadership thinking, yes, my purpose is to be the Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost at Truman State University. That wasn't it. The purpose that I have kind of led my leadership career is that, I want to help people maximize their potential. That is my purpose. I feel like I want Truman to be the best it can be. I want people who work at Truman to be the best they can be, faculty, staff, students. It's all about doing my job to support people so that they can do their best work. That's what motivates me. That's when I get the most energy out of my role, is when I provide what a faculty member might need to do the best that they can do to deliver content in their class, to help students learn. That's what it's all about. Your leadership purpose is who you are and what makes you distinctive. It's kind of like your brand. What drives you to achieve, and it's what makes you tick. That's essentially your purpose. It's not what you do, but it's how you do your job and why you do your job. What do those who are close to you recognize as uniquely you? Have you ever ask your friends, what do you think my purpose is? When I lead, what does it seem that my purpose is? What seems to energize me? What makes me tick? And really, your purpose should spring from your identity, because essentially it's the essence of who you are. So think about that when you're thinking about your purpose. What your purpose isn't is it's not just a list of your credentials, experiences, and your skills, just as I talked about. So for example, I have a PhD, I have my certification as a speech language pathologist, because that's what I did before I came to the university setting. And right now I'm the Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost. But again, that's not my purpose. It doesn't need to be, your purpose doesn't necessarily need to be aspirational or cause-based. It can be, maybe your purpose is to save the environment, to enhance women in the workplace. Maybe not. The reality is, though, your purpose may not be all that flattering, because it's who you can't help being. It's really what motivates you and drives you to do what you do. And that isn't always necessarily the most flattering thing. So how do you find your leadership purpose? Well, it's not easy. And if it were, we'd all know exactly what we were doing and why. And that would be pretty pleasant and pretty productive in the work environment. But we are constantly bombarded by messages from other people, from parents, from friends, from advertisers, from celebrities telling us what we should be and why we should be it. And there's that tendency to listen to those voices, to the voices of people who care about you, of the voices of people who are famous. But figuring out who you are and being true to yourself, that's hard work, but it's the most important work that you can do as a person and as a leader. So when you're trying to identify your purpose, when you're trying to come up with your purpose, evaluate your life story. What are some of the common threads and the major themes in your life? What are your core, your lifelong strengths, values, and passions? What really brings you joy? And in thinking about that, you might find your purpose and why you're driven to that purpose in your leadership style. So for example, maybe as a young person, you were always motivated by being the cheerleader. Maybe in the context of sports teams, you were always the person encouraging others no matter what. Even if they didn't get the home run or they weren't even able to get on base, you were there supporting them, encouraging them in spite of it all. Maybe in the classroom, you always were trying to help those that were not achieving as much as you, who were the struggling readers, the struggler learnings. Maybe that was what gave you purpose, is to help others. And if that's the case, and that's what has given you joy, maybe that is what you need to bring to your leadership style. Don't be a different type of leader. If that's the type of leader you are, embrace that and bring it to your leadership style. So ask yourself a couple questions in trying to identify what is your purpose. The first question I encourage you to ask yourself is, what did you especially love doing when you were a kid? Before the world told you what to do or what you shouldn't do, describe a moment that you really enjoyed and how it made you feel. And there's some other related questions that you can ask related to this particular question, like, what is so important to me that I'm endlessly fascinated by it? I want to learn more about it. I want to keep doing it. I can't get enough of it. And then think, when am I at my best? What things am I doing where I feel like I'm really in my zone, doing my best work? After you've kind of thought that through, think about this opposing question, question number 2. What are one or two of the most challenging life experiences that you have had? So we just talked about when you're really in your zone. You've answered that question. What really energizes you? What were your most favorite moments? But then on the flip side of that, think through what have been some really challenging times for you? And what have you learned from them? A lot of times our purpose is driven not only by our successes, but our mistakes. And I'll give you a practical example for me. So I actually applied for this position that I'm in right now twice. I applied once when Dr. Thomas, our current president, also applied for the provost position. And she was selected to be Truman's provost. I was the dean of the School of Health Sciences and Education at that time. And Dr. Thomas became the provost, and I continued on in my role as dean. And I was, of course, upset about that when I didn't get the position in the first place. But then I got the opportunity to work with Dr. Thomas, and I learned so much from her. And she brought new things to Truman, coming from another institution. And I really got to think about, okay, well, yeah, I'm really good at being a dean, and I could bring these things to the provost position. But where don't I know? And what more things can I add to my repertoire that would make me a better provost if I get the chance again? And I really focused on that. And then when Dr. Thomas became the president, the position of provost became open again, and I applied again. And this time I got it. And I realized, that was the best thing that could have happened to me, because I really got to sit back and think, okay, what are my skills? Where am I lacking? And let's add to that in a very purposeful way. And I really feel like as a result of that, I'm a much better provost than I would have been if I would have gotten the position the first time around. So ask yourself, again, what are one or two of your most challenging life experiences, and what did you learn from them? Question number 3, what do you enjoy doing in your life now that helps you sing your song? So what do you really love? I really love to run. I think a lot of people know this about me. I like to do marathons. I used to do quite a few triathlons, especially in the pre-COVID world. But that really helps me to be a better person. I do it to see how much my body can do, how much my mind can tell my body to do. I do it for relaxation. I do it for socialization. It really helps me be a better me. And when I think about my work, I often think about how my philosophy as a runner plays into my philosophy at work. So there's always that challenge of running another race and beating my own time and running a few more miles, or running trails as opposed to the road, or there's always something a little more, another little twist that I like to think about in the running world. And I try to do that in my job too. How can I do this a little differently? I always ask myself when I'm running, what went wrong if I had a really bad run? Was my hydration off? Was my nutrition off? Was I too tired? And that's what I think about with my job. Okay, so this didn't go very well. Why did this not work in this particular situation? What could I have done differently? And so when I take my experiences as a runner, which really inspires me and gives me joy, I try to take those same tenets from running and I put them in my job. And it really helps me do my work better because I know that there's so much about running that I want to accomplish, to do, and I take those same philosophies and put them into my workplace. So again, what do you enjoy in your life, and how does that help you sing your song? So now that you've asked yourself those questions, think about, take a shot at a statement, make a purpose statement, try to write it down, think about it. Write it down now, and then as you take on different leadership roles, think about how it evolves for you. So just start out, my leadership purpose is, and the words really should be your own. Try to capture your essence, call yourself into action, and as you review your stories and you find those unifying threads, try to incorporate them into your purpose. So I'll tell you mine. My purpose in leadership is to be a brave and thoughtful leader, to inspire others to act without fear. That's what I have written as my own leadership purpose. I do not, and one of the reasons why this has been my purpose, to inspire others and to act without fear, is because I do not want to be one of those leaders who, when no longer is in the position, when I'm no longer provost, I don't want whoever steps into my spot to say, oh my goodness, why didn't Dr. Gooch do this? Why didn't she take care of this? Why did she let that go on? I do not want that legacy. And so I think to myself, as I go through my day, be brave, okay? Be brave, be thoughtful, and inspire others and yourself to live without fear. Do what you want to do. Make your decisions not based on others and what they think is right for you. Do your own thing and accomplish what you want to accomplish. Once you've got that statement written, though, that's not enough. You can't just end there. You have to live that out. You have to think about that every day. Think about what your purpose statement is and try to act that way, live out that action in every interaction that you have with others. And you can take that one step further. Once you have that leadership statement, try to develop a plan around that. So again, I want to be a brave and thoughtful leader that inspires others to act without fear, to accomplish what they think they can accomplish. And so, I think, okay, what does that look like in the everyday? Well, a lot of people here at the university report to me, and I'm constantly having conversations with them about, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do in your position? Where do you want to take that? How do you want to take that and run with it? How do you want your area to be the best it can be? And have them throw out some plans, some ideas, and for me to help shape that so that they can actually take those plans and turn them into reality. So I think that's it for me. I hope that what I've told you has been helpful to think about leading at a distance, to really be intentional in that leadership and to develop your purpose and to live that purpose out. Thanks again for the invitation, and I wish you all a very successful rest of the semester. And if you have any questions about this talk, or you want to talk to me, please feel free to email me. I'm in the directory, but my email is jquinzer, JQUINZER @truman.edu. I'd be glad to talk to each and every one of you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Gooch. Our next speaker of the evening is Kayla Harris. Kayla currently serves as the Hall Director for Blanton Nason Brewer, Dobson, and Ryle Halls. Tonight, she'll be speaking about diversity in leadership, especially during the current pandemic, and how diversity is like a potato. Please welcome Kayla Harris.
Happy Sunday, everyone. My name is Kayla Harris. I am the B&B Dobson and Royal Hall Director and Co-Hall Director for this school year. I was asked by Margot to do a short video to talk about diversity and leadership for you all's lock-in today. Leadership. A 10-letter word with many different thoughts, ideas, processes, identities, and experiences. But according to Webster Dictionary, the definition of leadership is the action of leading a group or people or an organization. Diversity. A 9-letter word that is the definition of its meaning, which is a range of different things or state or being diverse or a variety. Being a leader is to have diversity. When you're put in a position to be a leader, there will always be diversity surrounding you. Whether it's being racially different, ethnically different, politically different, a height difference, the courses you're currently enrolled in, or if it's as simple as preferring crinkle cut french fries over steak cut french fries. Diversity is like a potato. Potatoes come in many different shapes and sizes, just like diversity. Potatoes can be baked, smothered, deep fried, air fried, mashed, or roasted, just to name a few. There are so many different forms of potato that almost everyone in this room today can and usually enjoy, such as potato salad, tater tots, breakfast potatoes, smothered potatoes, or even baked potatoes with everything on it. Yes, I'm talking about with the sour cream, cheese, and bacon bits because they hit every time. There are some people in this room who do not prefer smothered potatoes but would eat breakfast potatoes. And then you have people who won't eat baked potatoes, but they would prefer mashed potatoes. Even when you learn this within someone, you're still able to be friends and work on the same teams with one another. This is because we are able to work through our difference of opinions and still get the job done. This is the same thing when it comes to working with a diverse group of people, furthermore, leading those people. Having diversity in leadership can be compared to the COVID-19 pandemic that has taken over our lives recently. When the pandemic first started, we, the Residence Life team, had to be able to adjust and adapt our day-to-day operations as a Residence Life department. There were a lot of phone calls and emails that were sent out and made by your hall directors and upper level departmental people who we did the best we could. We did. Was it the easiest thing to do? Absolutely not. But because we were able to adjust and adapt is the reason why you all are here today. During this pandemic and changing up our day-to-day activities, we were able to connect more than what we had been doing this entire pandemic and even before then. We learned a lot about each other in the past couple of years, past couple of months than we did the entire school year. How does this correlate to the diversity and leadership? Being in a position of leadership, you have to be able to adjust and adapt to the people who are different from you. Literally, everyone in some way, shape, or form is different from you. They're different from you, whether it's your hair color, your hair texture, or the shoe size that they wear. Literally, everybody is different from the very next person that they sit next to. But you learn to bond over these differences within the team that you're leading. You, as a leader, know what works best for your team better than any other team leader that you will come across. You learn this by listening and learning your team members. There may be a topic that you all are talking about in your meetings, and there's someone who has a different approach to the same solution as everyone in the room. What do you do in that situation? Well, you listen to that person. You listen to that idea and see what you can take from that idea and incorporate it into the solution. Listening to the members of your team and letting incorporating their ideas is the greatest achievement that a leader can do. Listen and incorporate. Whether you're making a big decision that would affect the team in the months ahead, a couple of hours or days. Listen. I cannot stress enough how important it is to listen to the group of people that you're overseeing. As a leader, it is your job to make sure that everyone is being heard when it comes to making decisions that would affect the whole team or organization that you are a part of. What makes you a good leader? By having diversity. When I say diversity, I don't just mean your physical, like what makes you different physically, like what makes you different in your mind, in your soul, in your body, like what makes you different. You don't want people who think alike. It may sound crazy coming out of my mouth, but you don't want people who think just like how you think. You want people who will challenge your thoughts and your ideas. You want people who will bring different experiences, different, like we have a lot of people that are from different parts of the world. We're wanting their input. To be a great leader, you need to be receptive and acceptive of their opinions, experiences, and their thoughts as to how everything's going to go if they're a part of that group. No matter what team you serve on, whether you're a leader or not, there will always be someone who has different experiences than you. They come from different parts of the world, which I just mentioned. And what do you do when you have different opinions? You listen and incorporate. When you have different people on your team, that's perfectly fine. That's what you want in a team. And we all know that the world needs a little shaking up, and it's when it comes to diversity, and it's time for that. Once again, my name is Kayla Harris. I am the B&B Dobson and Royal Hall Director for this school year, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your lock-in. Thanks.
Thank you, Kayla. Up next on the agenda, we'll move into a self-reflective activity entitled Leadership Pizza. This activity requires our Leadership Pizza template, which you can download from our website. It'll help you to reflect on the different dimensions of what skills and attitudes you need in order to be a great leader.
On screen now is an example of a leadership pizza. First, take a moment to come up with the most important skills and attitudes to master in order to be a great leader. Then, write your top 8 outside the slices of the pizza. Next, color each slice of pizza proportionally to how well you'd say you exhibit those traits. Color the entire slice if you feel you've mastered the skill, none of the slice if you feel you lack the skill entirely, or somewhere in the middle. Finally, every great pizza has some toppings. Let your creativity free and decorate your pizza.
Once you've finished your pizza, we encourage you to submit a picture of it to us on our website. We'll showcase your submissions, anonymously if you choose, to help inspire other leaders. Please take the next 15 minutes to craft your leadership pizza. You're more than welcome to continue working on it in the future as well. Happy pizza crafting!
Welcome back. We hope you had a reflective and enjoyable time crafting those tasty leadership pizzas. Again, we invite you to share them with us on our website to inspire other leaders. We also invite you to revisit this activity in a few months to see how much you've grown as a leader.
Next up, we'll send things over to our student panel discussion with moderator Margot Moats. They'll be talking about how they've adapted as leaders to the unique challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic and answering some of the questions you submitted. Take it away, Margot.
Awesome. First off, I just want to say thank you all for joining us today for our panelist discussion for our lock-in. So my name is Margot Moats, and I'm a member of our NRHH chapter. So I'm going to serve as your guys' moderator today during this. So basically, we're just going to go through and do some introductions, and then I have just some questions to ask you all and just give you guys time to talk about each of your answers kind of. So we'll just start off with introductions. So if you want to do your name, your pronouns, what organization that you're from, and maybe just like a little quick bit about that. So we'll go ahead and have Hannah start for that.
Yeah, as Margot said, my name is Hannah Pohl. I prefer she, her pronouns, please. I am currently a graduate student in Truman's Master's of Arts in Education program. I graduated in May with my Bachelor's of Science in History and my minor in Philosophy and Religion. So ultimately, my goal is to be a high school history teacher. I will also be certified in middle school. Currently, I TA 2 college courses, like I full on them. One for 211, which is the basic beginning course for history majors, and the other one is a self and society class for freshmen and for transfer students. During my undergrad, I was a student advisor for 3 years. I was also part of NRHH. I was the president my senior year, which was last year, and I was also part of RHA, and I did a bunch of stuff with Hall Council, including being a leader for that. Like I led the Hall Councils and advised them, and then I was also part of Hall Council as well for a while. But that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Hannah. Now if we want to hear from Ben.
Hi, my name is Ben Collins. I'm studying English and Agricultural Science here at Truman. I prefer he, him, his. And then kind of my current leadership experience right now, I'm the president of the social fraternity, Tau Kappa Epsilon, and then the business fraternity, Alpha Kappa Psi. I also have a little bit of experience. I used to be on the student activities board and a little bit of student government also.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. Now we can hear from Riley.
Hi, my name is Riley Dawkins. I'm a senior math and physics major here at Truman. My pronouns are he, him, his. And I am currently the president of the National Residence Hall Honorary here on campus. Last year, I was the president of the Residence Hall Association, and I also have some experience working with the Hall Councils.
Thank you, Riley. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right in with some of our questions. So we'll probably just follow kind of the same pattern. I'll just tell each person one by one to go, just with us being on Zoom. So we'll go ahead and start with our first question that goes along with the theme of our lock-in this year. Obviously, our theme is leading from a distance. So what does leading from a distance mean to each of you? So we'll go ahead and start with Hannah.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question because I think this is a new challenge that a lot of leaders are just now starting to face. So it's like a lot of trial and error at the moment, especially for a lot of us in the spring. That was really the creation of like this trial and error. But I think like to me, leading by a distance is not just obviously like in COVID terms, but it's not always having to physically be there for your like leadership to have an effect on people. It's for you to be able to create like a strong foundation that people can learn from, or that it's like skills that people are learning from you or from the organizations that you're a part of, and regardless if you have a title or not within leadership. And I think that's pretty significant, regardless of it being face-to-face or over Zoom, or you have leaving an organization, but leaving with like a positive mark with the organization in general, with the people you're interacting with, is like leading from a distance because you're leaving kind of like a legacy or skills people are able to learn from and have a lasting impact on.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. We'll go and jump to Ben for the same question.
Yeah, I kind of like to think of it as, I don't know, talking kind of like the virus terms. I think leading by example. I know it's kind of hard for some people to really kind of work through the process and situation, especially being someone who's like within Greek life. So being able to stand out as an organization who's willing to follow those rules and willing to stand out and kind of set that example to me is really important, because at the end of the day, being a leader is keeping everyone safe and in a really good and healthy condition. So kind of setting that good example and being able to lead from a distance. And I also really liked Hannah's answer, just being able to be like flexible and working with people. Even if like you don't hold a position, you can still lead from a distance and be able to like work, just like being able to like be flexible and work with people no matter what happens.
Thank you, Ben. Now we'll hear from Riley.
Right, yeah. So I guess that one way to sort of initially think about it is there are kind of two main leadership styles that I tend to see. One is people who are very, very good at leading in person. They're very, very sociable. They like being really hands-on. And then there are also people who are a little bit more hands-off and maybe tend to be really good at organizing, but they're maybe less of a verbal communicator, less of an in-person type of person. And I think that recently what we've seen is kind of a shift towards that second type of leadership being more prevalent, which is obviously going to change how people approach leadership. It's going to be changing how everybody's going to see leadership. So we're kind of in like a whole new kind of ball game here, which is really interesting. But really, we're starting to see where some types of skills are becoming more applicable and more widely needed in terms of leadership than previously. And I think that's really, really interesting to see.
Yeah, thank you guys. Those were really great answers. So we're gonna go ahead and jump to our next question, which is, what are some of the struggles that you've been facing with your organizations having to go virtual? And how are you working to overcome them, or how have you overcome them so far? So yeah, we're gonna start with Ben on this one.
Yeah, like I said, being a part of Greek life, it's definitely been very hard because, a huge portion, I guess of all organizations is being able to meet in person and have that, like, that communicative and close, intimate experience with, like, for me, my brothers, being able to see them in person. So just kind of explaining to people that, like, there are times that we're going to have to be online and having to be okay with that, kind of setting that precedent, really. And I'd say another big thing is being, like, really open to communication with the university, like events like philanthropies, fundraising, like things that your organizations are really passionate about can be really hard to accomplish right now. So being clear on what the rules are of what you can and can't do has been really big for my organizations this semester.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. We're gonna go to Riley next.
All right, yeah. Could you repeat the question real quick? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. So what are some of the struggles that you have been facing while leading your organization virtually, and how are you overcoming them, or how have you overcame them I guess, like in the past so many months?
Yeah. So I think that definitely a big part of it is that we're having to meet a lot more virtually. So we see less people in person. We see people in person less often, even when we do get the opportunity to see people in person, and not everybody has that, of course. So one way that we're overcoming that is we're using the apps that we usually use a lot more, like GroupMe. We use GroupMe more. Emails, we're making very good use of email. We're using Zoom a lot. We're even using Zoom in meetings to try and make them safer so that people can attend virtually when they need to, or when they don't feel confident attending in person that week. So I think that honestly, like getting that kind of stuff set up, getting it to where we can approach meetings in a different type of format with different rules that we're approaching them with. That's been like the first initial struggle in trying to smooth that out so we get kind of a thing going with it. That's probably the biggest thing.
Thank you, Riley. Now we'll have Hannah answer this one.
Yeah, I think my approach has been a lot different, especially because like as a grad student, I teach 2 courses. And I think for me, I'm definitely starting to see it on a profession level with like how professors are struggling to deal with this and how important it is, kind of like Ben said, to be very open in communication with my students, because I think a lot of people are very scared right now, just not only of the virus, but of just the constant like changing of things, unknowing of things, students having to be quarantined, even though they might know that they're negative, but it's just like that isolation. So it's like one, being very positive to my students and those around me. And I think that can be very hard sometimes when sometimes it's hard for you to even see the positive. but it's like if my students see me being negative, it's hard for them to want to come to class on the days we do meet in person or to have any enthusiasm when I am teaching them via Zoom. And it's like being very intentional when we do meet over Zoom. So it's like for me, I have like very strict rules where I'm like, I would like cameras to be on. Like if you don't have a working camera, that's different, but I'd like to hear your voice at least like twice during a class period. So that way, like I am still interacting with my students and seeing their faces. So they're getting that social interaction because like networking within your major is very important. So it's like from a teaching standpoint, just like being very positive to my students and also reaching out to any of them that are quarantining. Like I've had a few that have been in quarantine and like, have you been getting food? Like, how is your mental health doing? And things like that, like just checking in. And it's like, okay, well, if they're not getting the basic things that they need, what can I do working with the university to make sure that my students are, doing the best they can given the situations? And I think like both Ben and Riley touched on that, but just being flexible and positive is massive because things are going to continue to change. Like if we get bumped up to a level 2 or level 3, things are going to change up even more rapidly. So it's just like being flexible and staying positive, I think, is the best thing that any leader can do, kind of regardless of what our organizations are in at the moment.
Thank you, Hannah. It's really awesome to hear the things that you guys are trying to do for your organizations. So our next question is going to be, how have the current circumstances forced you to grow in your leadership journey? Obviously, being a leader, when you go through things like this, it affects you as well, and it causes you to change in different ways. So just how have you had to change, maybe in your leadership or personally or any of that? What kind of growth have you been through? And we're going to start with Riley on this one.
So usually when you're in a position of leadership, one thing that you very, very quickly realize is that you don't have a lot of like control over things. So like once you're maybe a month in, you'll start to realize that things are just kind of happening. Things are occurring around you, and your main job is just to kind of make sure that you can hold the helm of the ship, so that you can get through the storm and get to the next part of the sea, I guess that analogy would go. But with COVID and everything and all the different changes that have been happening, it's like there's a much larger storm going on. And so one thing that I've personally seen everybody who I've seen as a leader do in terms of their growth is they have been having to handle much larger waves, much larger storms. They've had a lot more to deal with, a lot of different things that are out of their control. There are many more things out of their control than usual. And so it can be very, very difficult. It can be very, very hard to see all that in front of you and have to know that you have to work your way through it. But at the end of the day, seeing everybody be able to do that has really, really impressed me. So, yeah.
Thank you, Riley. Next, we're going to go to Hannah.
Yeah, I think definitely something that I've seen throughout all of the challenges that COVID has brought is definitely one, just being very understanding. Like I have certain strengths that people see in me, and if it's kind of like all they kind of focus on is they're like, this individual has this strength. So at the moment, we're just really going to heavily utilize that. And it doesn't allow a lot of opportunity for growth in the moment. Then understanding that, this is where I'm most needed in this area. And I think the biggest challenge for me is really like understanding that unfortunately within our public schools, this is going to become a reality for a couple of years, is doing flipped classrooms and virtual stuff and working with students who might not have technology at home, and understanding like how to work with students both in and out of the classroom and challenge myself and learning the resources and how to better provide for my students. I think something that's really massive is like the freshmen feel very lost this year because it's not an experience they were kind of betting on. And one, being a grad student and having have gone through like a fairly normal, awesome undergrad, still trying to give them those resources to be able to have that experience and like challenge themselves in leadership while still maintaining like safety measures is something that's really challenged me because I want to still be able to provide opportunities for my students both in and out of the classroom and challenging their leadership But it makes it more challenging to find those resources and be intentional. And I think that's the biggest thing, is really being intentional with every interaction and like every resource I give, because it's not like in the years past where I'm like, go to the activities fair or here are all these other options, because sometimes it's a little bit more limited in just size and capacity and just what organizations are able to provide, and like communicating that with them, but aiding them the best I can. So I think it's something that I've really kind of had to learn over the last couple months.
Thank you so much, Hannah. And we'll have Ben answer now.
I'd say my biggest growth personally is just kind of learning to roll with the punches, I'd say. I guess I learned that like in any position, but I guess especially kind of with COVID, like every day is a new challenge or just something new comes up that you didn't think you'd have to deal with. So kind of learning to roll with the punches and being able to sometimes even delegate those tasks to other people. I'd say that's my biggest takeaway so far from being in these positions or working through this, kind of this wacky year. And of course, just I don't know, working through things virtually is a lot different than meeting in person. So kind of working through the little differences in there has been a unique and different thing for me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben. So I know we've asked a few questions kind of about like COVID in general, and like, a lot of our questions have centered around that. So I kind of want to shift it more to you all, and see kind of like just more about you as leaders personally. So our first question for that is going to be, how do you take care of yourself while being a leader? So yeah, and we're going to hear from Hannah first.
Yeah, so I think this is something a lot of leaders is a huge challenge for them. I know when I kind of first started my leadership journey in college, like taking care of myself was something I really struggled with, because I felt like I had to put my organization and everyone in my organizations like above myself to make sure that they were doing okay and that things were getting done. And I think that's like a really hard lesson for leaders to learn, is like personal wellness. And I think something that I kind of learned throughout my journey and I'm still learning is I have like almost very strict times for when I do and do not do things, specifically within my organization or like as an educator. Like I tell my students, like after 6 p.m. on Fridays, I will not answer emails unless it's like clearly an emergency. And I will not respond to them until like realistically I wake up on Sunday morning. So it's like that way I kind of have the me time on my weekends, so that I'm not having to focus on like being an educator. And when I was in my undergrad, it was something very similar, but I had very set times of like when I'd go on walks or when I would take my breaks. And certain days where I'm like, okay, I'm not doing anything for this organization today. So that way I can delegate times for elsewhere. And I think that really helps me find pocketed times to just take care of myself and not constantly be thinking about all of the responsibility I had to do. And I also was fairly like strict on my boundaries, especially when I was an essay, like drawing my lines about, when I couldn't do things.
Thank you, Hannah. Next, we're going to go to Ben.
I think coming up with like healthier habits, I think like I know for me, like getting into like exercising was something new. And like similar to Hannah, like I've been going on like walks, just like a short walks this semester, which kind of sounds silly, but it's kind of been hard to work out with COVID. So something like even so simple, implementing that into your schedule, just giving yourself like 10 minutes or 20 minutes, just like little breaks in between, is super helpful and just really restorative. And then like my most essential part of like wellness is having someone who I can go to whenever I'm feeling like down or just uncertain about a decision I'm making, like having a friend or having like a really like a smart or intelligent peer I can go to almost like peer review my own decisions. I think that's what I like most about Truman, is a really supportive community. So it's definitely how I really find success.
Thank you, Ben. Now we'll hear from Riley.
Yeah, so honestly, I feel like I'm still kind of learning how to do this. It's not something I've nearly perfected at all, but it is something I continue to learn about. I guess like the big thing is if you're ever like, for instance, on a Monday and it's an evening, you want to go get dinner, you get like 5 texts from 5 different people about 5 different things that you have to deal with right now. Then it's really about taking a deep breath, trying to understand which ones of those texts you might really need to deal with right then and which ones you could put off for like a half an hour and like go eat. So it's just about learning to take a deep breath, pausing, finding out where you're at, not getting too crazy about it, keeping level head.
Thank you, Riley. It's really awesome to hear some of the different ways that you guys have like learned to take care of yourselves. So yeah, the next one, we're gonna kind of keep with the same idea. Like I want to hear more about you all. So what values are most important to you all as a leader? So we're gonna start with Ben on this one.
I'd say I'm a pretty honest person, so I just like being honest with my organizations or just like my peers in general. I think being able to inform everyone of the current situation and get everyone else's views is very important because I have a lot of experience, but like there's so many different perspectives that can add so much to a situation or solving a problem. So it's definitely something I like to implement like into my leadership strategy or into an organization, like if you're struggling with something or if you're uncertain about a decision.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. We're gonna go to Riley next.
Yeah, so I think that the main two values that I tend to value in leadership are positivity and level-headedness. Positivity because if you're a leader who's not very positive, then the people in your organization aren't going to enjoy being in your organization, and you want them to enjoy what they're doing. And then level-headedness because, again, things are going to get very crazy as a leader, especially this year with COVID, and being able to take a deep breath, approach a situation calmly. I think that's really, really, really important.
Thank you, Riley. Next, we're gonna hear from Hannah.
Yeah, I agree a lot with my fellow peers, but I think for me, transparency and commitment are two very big ones. Kind of like both Ben and Riley discussed, transparency is huge for me. If I'm very transparent with, my organization or my peers, a lot of times they are very transparent back. So I can understand what needs they might need and how I might be able to help fill them or give them resources for them to fill. And it also allows me to seem human because I think sometimes when we have titles, it's very hard for people to sometimes feel comfortable to come to us. And I think if we're, like Ben said, honest and transparent, people feel comfortable coming to us and just telling us about their day or their issues, both in and outside of an organization. And I think that's huge and building like a foundation for any organization and any leadership. And then for me, commitment's a big one. If individuals aren't committed or I'm not committed, it's hard to have that positivity. It's hard to have that transparency. And it's hard to build that foundation and learn how to do change and growth. So I think for me, those are two very big ones, at least for me, and how I challenge myself in my leadership.
Thank you, Hannah. It's really awesome to see some of your guys' values, especially as leaders on campus. So we're going to go into our next question, and that one is, who has had a tremendous impact on you as a leader and why? I think many times, as leaders, we have people who have kind of been a role model for us. So who was that for you and for what reason? We're going to start with Riley.
I'm actually muted right now, sorry. No, I think that the person who I would probably say is actually on the Zoom call right now, and it is Hannah Pohl. So I got to see her as a leader when she was the programming chair for RHA. I got to see her as a leader as NRHH president. I got to see her as a leader as my RA and as the main advisor for our hall council 2 years in a row at Dobson. And she is a very good leader. You see leaders around campus doing various things for various organizations. And very rarely do you find a leader who's that good at getting people excited about the organization they're in, who's that good at communicating to them and being really honest about what's going on with the group, and just being able to even be around that has been incredibly influential in my knowledge of how leaders are supposed to lead or how things are supposed to work. So I'd probably say Hannah.
Thank you, Riley. We're going to go to Ben next.
I'd say actually a past president of one of my organizations, her name was Jade. I guess similar to one of the qualities Hannah talked about, just the commitment she had just to bettering an organization, to give opportunity. She gave so much time and dedication to better an organization just to give more opportunities to all of her peers and students. That's something that I really look up to, is just that commitment and all of that time and dedication. Definitely something that I strive to do, putting more time and effort towards my organizations.
Thank you, Ben. We're going to hear from Hannah now.
Yeah, I think this is always such a hard question because I think there have always been individuals who have been placed in my life for a reason to help me grow. But I think like both as a leader and like an educator, I had Bradford Peace as one of the biggest leaders in my life. He was the RHA president 3 years ago, 4 years ago, five, I don't know, a while ago. I've been in college so long, I kind of forget. And not a lot of people believed in the programming chair of RHA and saw a lot of value in like programming and what it could do for a community. And he really believed in me, and I like applied when I was a freshman, for the position because it was open. And he put like a lot of like trust in me, and I think that really built my confidence because I just got out of high school where I was told that you had to kind of be like popular or part of the in crowd to like be a good leader. And it's like I hadn't really had that. So to have someone to tell me that like I didn't need to be popular to be a good leader, really spoke to me, and like have someone believe in me in a way that like no one previously had, I think like really kind of hit me hard. And then like Dr. Sally West, like she came in my life as when I was a junior, but hearing like her story of just the things she does in her life and the fact that like she never saw herself as a leader, but just the mass impact she has on her students, but in and out of the classroom, I think really spoke to me. And like that's how I want to be. Like I just want to live my life, but people be so inspired by just like meeting me and just having a conversation with me. And like, I don't know. It was just something that I always think about those two. So
Thank you so much, guys. I really love hearing those answers. I love hearing just how people have impacted other people, just in any way. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up our panelist section of the leadership lock-in. So I just want to thank you all for participating in our panelist discussion, kind of leadership discussion section. So yeah.
Thank you for attending tonight's Leadership Lock-In event. It means a lot to each of us here at NRHH that you carved out a part of your day for us. The recording of tonight's event will remain available for you to rewatch at any time by visiting our website. I'd also like to take a moment to thank everyone who made tonight possible, whose names will be scrolling on your screen in a moment. Each played an important role in putting on this first of its kind event for our organization, and it wouldn't have been nearly as successful without their hard work. From all of us here at NRHH, stay safe and happy leading, Bulldogs.